Chapter 4. Europe, Spain and the Balearic Islands. San Francisco Bruce drops Keith and me off at a local youth hostel in Barcelona. Then off he goes on his travels. What a stroke of luck it was for us catching a ride south with Bruce. The clerk at the front desk assigns me to the upper bunk bed in a bunkhouse room with a dozen bunk bed tandems. So over 20 people could sleep in this one community room. Each hostel location has a different setup, but basically rooms with bunk beds and a community bathroom. I had 3 roommates in the small hostel room in Amsterdam, compared with 7 roommates in London, and now the biggest rooms here in Barcelona. I'm hanging out on my upper bunk bed, listening into a conversation among several guys about going into the town. "Hey man," says one of the guys to me, "you're welcome to come along." I hesitate for a few seconds. "Sure man, I'll tag along and check out the scene with you guys." I jump down from my bed and join in with a group of 3 other guys. We head down the street looking for a place to eat. We meet an English fellow while walking the streets who gives us directions to a nice eating establishment about 5 minutes from where we are. After dinner, with my other 3 companions, we realize that time is not on our side. The hostel doors close for the evening at 11:30. We have less than an hour to get back to the hostel. Our waitress hears of our plight and suggests a fellow employee who is just now clocking out could perhaps motor scooter ride each of us back to the hostel. She talks to the guy and he agrees. We flip coins to see who goes first. I lose. The first guy takes off. 3 of us are left at the restaurant. We flip coins again. I lose. The second guy leaves when the scooter returns. 2 of us remain at the restaurant. We flip a coin. I lose again. Now I know I'm not going to make it back in time. I watch the 3rd guy leave on the motor scooter. 5 minutes later, the clock hits 11:30 and the hostel doors are locked tight. The scooter guy hasn't returned and I'm out of time and luck tonight. I know for sure I'm out in the streets of Barcelona for the night without a sleeping bag or my belongings. I wander along the broad boulevards, pass by the bustling nightclub scenes, and continue on my sojourn to nowhere. I feel like I am swept up in a strange social current that permeates throughout my travels. I'm speaking of the movement of the Western hip culture through the veins of the rest of the world. I'm a representative hippie in this worldwide movement. I'm on a mythic adventure on the hippie trail world journey. It amazes me that the theme of this traveling adventure of mine rings true again and again, over and over. The Northern European hippie youths and I easily spot each other in a crowd and understand our relative commonalities. I am in essence an icon of this great cultural movement. I go out empowered and searching to make my presence felt and to feel the presence of the world that is not part of the West reflected back at me. As I'm walking the streets of Barcelona, alone in the dark night, I notice another lonely soul wandering the streets. He seems harmless, a fellow student maybe. He carries a duffel bag on his back, strapped across his shoulder. "Hello, how are you?" I say. "You get locked out of your hostel too?" "No, I'm leaving at the break of dawn on my ship in the merchant marine," he responds. "I decided to spend the night awake strolling through town." "I'm Steve." We shake hands. "I'm Isaac, originally from Germany." "I'm from the USA." "I was in Amsterdam, and I was supposed to meet up with friends here in Barcelona," says Isaac, "but I have not been able to hook up with them." "I was in Amsterdam too. What a place. I had to get away. It was too much. Stayed 10 days though. When were you there?" "Oh, just a couple weeks ago. Met up with some friends, had a wild time, then I had to go get down here." The two of us walk together down the streets, having a pleasant conversation. Isaac and I get a drink at a late-night cafe. We sit around observing the activities of the night. The air is thick and lively with the local Spanish people. Although it is late after hours, the people have enjoyed a siesta to break up their day, so they tend to stay up late, although someone forgot to tell the hostel about this part of Spanish life. My German companion and I leave the cafe and walk to a nearby bar coined the Texas Bar. We proceed down some narrow steps into a basement. What a funky little dive, a basic watering hole, more or less. A thin crowd of several patrons huddle in the dark corners of the bar. We walk to the bar and order a draft en brew. When the bartender returns with our drinks, Isaac asks if we can light up a reefer joint in here. The bartender says, "No." After we gulp our mugs, we leave the Texas Bar and walk the streets some more. Isaac lights up his giant reefer joint. We walk around the block a couple times, then head back into the Texas Bar. We are the last patrons of the place at this point. Isaac puts some coins in for some jukebox music. We order some more brews and play foosball. The German is really good at the game. I don't have a chance as he scores goal after goal on me. The place closes at 3 a.m. as we are abruptly ushered back out to the streets by the bartender. We continue wandering until we find a strip show. What a lovely way to pass the late morning hours. It's 5 a.m. now, and my German friend Isaac wants to get moving to make way to the docks. His merchant marine vessel leaves at 6:30 a.m. sharp, and he needs to get moving. I reluctantly leave the girly strip show and head back out to the streets with Isaac. He hails a cab. I wish him luck and good adventures on the high seas. The cab departs. Now I'm walking the streets alone, waiting for sunrise. I stumble into a commercial fruit market, buzzing with activities as vendors arrange their goods for the early morning customers. The people are very lively, intense, vibrant with activity to greet the new day. I continue walking about the city, witnessing many different aspects of Barcelona as it wakes up. I finally arrive at a ship ticket office that will soon be opening up for the day. There are a group of islands in the Mediterranean Sea known as the Balearic Islands. The most famous is Majorca. But somehow the buzz I hear from many is that Ibiza is the place to go. I purchase a ticket to the island of Ibiza when the ticket window opens for business. I make my way back to the hostel so I can pick up my gear. When I get to the bunk in my room, I discover my sleeping bag is gone. One of the guys tells me that my sleeping bag was given to a guy on a scooter to give to me last night, just as they locked the doors for the night. Well, I never hung around at the restaurant where we were, nor did I see the scooter guy again. Now I've lost my sleeping bag and will need to get another one. Damn it. The extra cost on my very limited budget is upsetting to me. I depart the hostel with my backpack and walk to the docks. My boat doesn't leave till tonight, so I decide to take a long nap in a nearby park. I can't sleep right away even though I'm very tired. My mind is abuzz in thought. I think Morocco is my answer for the start of the winter months, but the many road stories I've been hearing about needing to cut my hair to get into the country is really messing with my head. My proud hippiedom status is rooted in my hair. These road stories among travelers might just be legend and lore. The other day a guy insisted, Moroccan authorities will not admit long hairs into the country. It's a heavy trip owning my hair, red curls springing out in all directions. I finally drift off to sleep, sitting down, leaning against the base of a tree. I'm boarding a Spanish steamer for the island of Ibiza. It only cost 106 pesetas, not a bad price. I board the ship and take my seat on a long bench amongst rows of benches for passengers to sit upon. I look around the vicinity and notice some hipsters who introduce themselves as a couple of Swiss German guys, Hans and Oliver. We meet up with Keith, who came down from London with me, and an American named Glenn sitting starboard. The ship departs at 7 p.m. for a 16-hour voyage to Ibiza. I walk out to the side rail and check out the setting sun on the watery horizon. From the opposite side of the boat, I see the vestiges of land slowly disappear. We will soon be enveloped in darkness and water. I go back inside the boat cabin and take my place on a bench and drift off to sleep. I'm startled awake from the ship's bullhorn. It's a new day. I slept through the evening. I yawn, getting my sensations back to conscious waking. I stretch and move about, as do many of the passengers. People shuffle along, gathering their things. Another bullhorn blast as we near docking. I walk around the outskirts of the ship deck, backpack strapped over one shoulder. I meet up with my 4 traveling companion friends. The 5 of us look out upon the great Mediterranean Sea. The fresh air and soft morning breeze is exhilarating to the senses. We walk around to the other end of the ship and can barely spot land. It first appears as a vague outcrop on the horizon that keeps growing in shape and form as we draw near. We are sailing around the island to the beautiful port city of Ibiza. I am numbed by the sheer beauty, like out of a painting, of the white buildings nestled on the hills overlooking the harbor. There is a reason why this small part of the world, hidden in watery seclusion, has such a grand reputation from travelers. It appears like something I would conjure up in the fantasy of my imagination. And here it is in true, sparkling reality, Ibiza. We disembark from the ship at the port city docks. I see groups of travelers forming from our ship. The crowds are growing restless and aimless as chaos begins to take hold at the docks. I have to squeeze myself forward through people. I'm getting nauseous from the crowded commotion when I spot a clear opening to break away from the throng. I walk around the city of Ibiza for a while with my backpack strapped to my back. It looks more interesting from the water than it does walking on land. The place is overcrowded in the commercial areas. Everywhere I go, either by a hotel or eating establishment, people are waiting in long, winding lines. I wend my way through the small island town down to the shoreline. I walk along the shore, heading back near the docks. I spot Keith with 2 Swiss German guys, Hans and Oliver, as well as Dan from Connecticut, who I met on the voyage, hanging out under the shade of a tree, sprawled on the grass. I approach my comrades and join the group. Hey guys, this town is past capacity. Too many tourists, no vacancy signs everywhere, I say. Yeah, man, says Oliver. We were just talking about hooking a boat ride to Formentera. It can only be reached from here. They sell tickets at the docks, says Hans. The guy at the ticket booth says the island is even smaller and hardly any tourists go there, so maybe we could find a cheap place to stay or sleep on the beach. I'm game if you guys are, I respond. How about you, Dan and Keith? Sure, man, says Dan. Keith hesitates a bit as he looks at the 4 of us standing together, ready to go. He sits on the grass with a look of indecision planted on his face, like a deer in the headlights. For such a big guy, he can seem rather timid. Finally, the big old Canadian gives a nod of his head to join our band. We get tickets from the clerk at the docks. We board our small watercraft soon thereafter. We are the only passengers, along with a middle-aged couple. 10 to 12 minutes later, and we are on the island of Formentera. The island of Formentera is exotic and strange, otherworldly to me. It is a very barren place, dominated by red soil and endless rocks of all shapes and sizes. The people are simple farmers with many goats and chickens. I notice countless small brown lizards everywhere bathing in the bright sun. They scamper when any person draws near. The dried red dirt gives the island a pervading mood of heavy dullness. Our little group takes a long, wandering walk along the shoreline of the island. We eventually notice we have traversed enough to be away from all hints of civilization in a secluded alcove. Dusk is nearing as each guy unrolls his sleeping bag to sleep on the beach. I don't have a sleeping bag, so I'm screwed as the chilly sea breeze air shivers me. "Here, Woodstock," says Hans as he hands me 2 plastic shiny sheets. "These are space blankets that Oliver and I bought in case we ever get in a pinch." "How do they work?" I inquire. "Looks more like paper to me." "It's supposed to warm you by reflecting your body heat," says Oliver, joining in our conversation. "Just wrap them around your shoulders and legs." "Okay, I'll give it a try," I say. "I doubt I have any body heat to reflect. I'm chilled to the bone already." The guys go back to their sleeping bags on the beach. Everyone is sprawled out and covered up for a good night's rest, except me. I take the space blankets and pull them around me, but it's no use. I'm too cold and chilled to even consider sleeping. I listen to the waves lap up against the shore as I gaze up to the night sky. The other guys are quiet, probably sleeping. I can hear Big Keith snoring. The stars in the sky are very beautiful tonight. I search the heavens for an inspiration to add greater meaning to my life. Do I search in vain? Where will the years of my tomorrows lead? What is to be the fate of my destiny? The roosters start crowing before daybreak, hours before daylight, more like all night long. So much for the song, "The Rooster Crows at the Break of Dawn." Today I greet the morning sunrise by jumping into the sea. I get naked before I jump in. The water is pretty cold at first, but I get used to it. It feels good to bathe in the sea. Being a wanderer traveler builds up much sweat, grime, and road dust. It feels good to wash it all free from my body. I swim back to the shore from the salty blue sea. I dry myself off with my shirt, then put on my shorts and sandals. "Hey guys, time to get up," I shout. Each of my traveling companions rustles around in their sleeping bags, but no one's rushing to greet the new day. The salt water doesn't feel too good on the skin after it dries. I need to rinse off with some fresh water. "Woodstock, what's up?" says Oliver, sitting up in his sleeping bag. "I've been out swimming in the nude. It's great. You ought to try it." Oliver nudges Hans, still laying prone, smothered inside his sleeping bag. "Leave me alone," says Bert and Hans in a muffled voice. "Come on, man, let's go for a morning swim," says Oliver. Just then Dan gets out of his sack and is ready to jump in the sea. Oliver nudges Hans again. Hans flips the flap of his bag open and crawls out onto the red sandy beach in slow motion. He yawns and stretches. Big Keith is still motionless in his sleeping bag. Suddenly, without warning, we all 4 start running to the water. I don't know who actually went first, but we're all running to the water now. When we get to the shoreline, each of us stops briefly to drop off what clothing we are wearing before jumping into the sea. Here I go, a second time. How free and easy is this? I'm having a grand time as I float atop the water, sunning my nakedness in the sea. I hear the other guys horsing around in the distance. I close my eyes and venture deep into my imagination, as if cradled in a floating bed of water. I float back way before my time, when I'm in the embryonic state, floating in my mother's womb in early 1948. In my months of pre-birth development, I float in what seems to be a liquid sea. I am a fetus growing and developing so that I may be born. I am a consciousness eagerly anticipating animation with my soul, from a soulless to be a being with a soul. Only now, some 22 years later, and I'm playing out a new scene. I float in my nakedness in the womb of my mother mirth. I feel connected as one with the powers that energize the planet to a perpetual motion as natural law. I am at one with the universal essence of my being. This mere blip in time, may it always remain as a calming vision of clarity in my memory. I open my eyes and realize I've drifted too far from shore. I swim back to my group. What a workout. The four of us make our way to the shoreline after our naked bath in the Mediterranean Sea. Standing on the beach together, we decide to rinse off the salt water at a freshwater well not too far down the beach from where we are. Each of us goes to our stuff spread out on the beach to gather our belongings. The Canadian guy, Keith, is finally up and about. He wears a startled look, a bewilderment, watching us four naked guys scurry about. Hey, Keith, man, can you watch all of our stuff if we gather it all together over here by this tree? I inquire. We're going to walk down the beach and rinse off at a freshwater well. Keith doesn't say anything in response, but he nods his head in agreement. Our group finishes gathering our stuff into a pile. Then the four of us start running naked down the beach, racing each other to the water well. Oliver and Hans make it a two-man race, leaving Dan and me to challenge for third place. I ease up at the end to let Dan win. Each of us rinses off at the well. Someone has to continuously pump the well handle to keep the water going, so we take turns pumping the arm of the well until each of us has had a chance to thoroughly rinse the seawater from his body. As we are walking back to our campsite along the shoreline, a few native islanders come out to greet us. They only speak Spanish, but as luck would have it, Hans is well schooled in the different dialects of Spain. Hans talks to them, then tells us in translation what they said. The Guardia Civil is looking for us, says Hans. We're in trouble. Who are the Guardia Civil? Inquires Dan, innocently unaware. The Guardia Civil are the national police force for the dictator of Spain, General Franco, I answer. Yeah, man, they're everywhere in this crazy country, and they wear these ridiculous hats that resemble protruding Mickey Mouse ears, says Oliver. But it's no laughing matter when they want you. The four of us continue walking the shoreline back to our overnight campsite. What else did they say? I asked Hans. The islanders said they went walking toward our site down the beach. When we get to our home base, still naked, we discover the cops going through our things. Keith is off to the side of our pile of stuff, his head bowed to the ground. He refuses to look at us. The cops greet us by waving our confiscated passports in the air. We are in deep shit now. We are being charged with public nudity and maybe some other things. My knife and passport are confiscated from my backpack. The cops discover a gas-propelled gun in Oliver's pack. This is a big issue for the police, as I witness them interrogate Oliver with loud shouts. I can't understand what is being said, but it is obvious the cops are very angry. We are directed to put some pants on and gather our gear as Hans translates for us what to do next. We are then forced marched to a tiny town called San Francisco, about 30 minutes by foot. Hans continues chatting with the cops during our march. We follow in line behind Oliver and a couple of Guardia Civil officers leading us in the direction we should go. Several more cops take up the rear of our line. We arrive at the constabulary of the island. It's just a small box-like building with a couple of empty jail cells. All five of us stand together, awaiting our fate. The chief of police walks over to our group from his small corner office. He talks directly to Oliver. Hans translates for us. They're not going to give us our passports back. We have to leave this island and return to Ibiza to retrieve our passports, says Hans. No way. You got to be joking, I say. What about jail time? If we leave right now, we should be okay, says Hans. The chief breaks away from his chat with Oliver and returns to his office. The next boat Doesn't leave till 8 in the morning tomorrow, says Hans. They're keeping Oliver's gas gun and your knife, Woodstock. I told you guys about the passports. Bottom line, if we don't agree to everything, they will lock us up. Each of us nods his head in agreement. If this is the only get-out-of-jail-free option that we have, then we must take it. The 5 of us are released from our handcuffs and given our possessions back, minus the stuff they kept. We immediately start walking from the little jail in San Francisco to the port from which we had disembarked yesterday. Keith is very worried, constantly complaining about our plight. This causes the rest of us to band together in laughing at his crybaby nervousness. We have nowhere else to go until the morning when the boat leaves for Ibiza. We hang out near a smelly fish hole that is part of the dock area to ensure we don't miss our ride in the morning. We can't take a chance because we were warned explicitly. If we're not on the boat in the morning, then it's off to jail. Another night will pass with limited sleep for me. Around 4 in the morning, someone walks past the fish hole by the docks. The guys are all sleeping. I've been gazing at the moon and the stars when my attention is drawn to the lone figure stirring by the docks. I follow the guy to a cafe, waiting for the place to open. I meet 2 Spanish hippies from Madrid. It's very rare to see local hippies in Spain. I didn't think the subculture even exists here. Now I know otherwise. A guy named Manila can speak a little English, so we can converse. You from America, wild-head man? Yeah, I'm from the States, I reply. We shake hands in greeting as Manila introduces me to Juan. Shortly thereafter, the cafe opens as I join my 2 Spanish hipster friends at a table. We are soon joined by 2 more Spanish hippies. They offer to buy me breakfast and coffee. Wonderful! How hospitable is that? I enjoy bringing in the early morning hours with my newfound friends. The sun is now coming up over the sea and hills of the bay. My hippie friends have a telescope to view the beauty. We finish the breakfast and walk out of the cafe for a better view. I take my turn, looking into the telescope. The beauty of nature is breathtaking. A pipe of opiated hash is passed around from hippie to hippie. The sun rises over a reddish-brown mountain that hangs over the bay. It takes a full 2 minutes for the sun to ascend completely, like in slow motion, beaming its ever-expanding full radiance. The telescope and hashish have created a peak experience. What a way to greet a new way. Then Hans comes running up to the cafe, hollering for me because the boat is now leaving for Ibiza. I say goodbye to my Spanish hipster friends, then race back to the docks with Hans. I feel like I'm moving on air, sipping along, my feet barely touching the ground. I am high. Dig it. Far out. Groovy, man. We make it back to the docks just in time for departure. Hans and I board the boat and meet with smiles and nods of assurance from our buddies, Oliver, Dan, and Keith. A Guardia Civil officer watches over us. We are technically under his custody until we get to Ibiza. He carries a leather pouch bag. I'm sure it contains each of our passports. Stranded at the ends of earth without permission to extract ourselves just yet. While I was having breakfast with my Spanish hipster friends this morning, Manila told me about a place on Ibiza to purchase a used sleeping bag. That has to be my first order of business after we are freed by the authorities. I'm so tired. I'm past exhaustion. The sleepless nights are wearing down my fatigued body. The boat ride back to Ibiza is a relatively short trip. I sit in silence on a bench and gaze out to the sea. The small boat slices through the splashes of the rippling waves. The boat driver slows down to steer the craft at anchor on the docks. We disembark and proceed to follow the Guardia Civil officer. The cop takes us on a brief sojourn in the town of Ibiza. We trail along single file as the officer leads us to the Guardia Civil office on the island. We arrive at the jail and are directed to an interrogation room. All of us wait in silence for several agonizing minutes. What will become of us? Will we do jail time? Are they going to give us our passports back? An officer opens the door to the interrogation room. The 5 of us sit in a row on chairs at a table. The officer walks to the other side of the table. He speaks in Spanish to Hans, who in turn translates to the rest of us. He says he will only give our passport back if we leave for mainland Barcelona today. We have to purchase tickets, then come back here, show proof of our ticket, each of us, then they will give us our passports back. Okay, we all agree in unison. We leave it as a group, minus the cop overseer, and walk back to the docks, to the ship ticket office. Instead of going back to Barcelona, as directed by the authorities, we decide to purchase tickets to Valencia to head down the Spanish coast toward Morocco. We return to the Guardia Civil headquarters in Ibiza and present proof of our ticket purchases. The lead officers who greet us become instantly angry at our irreverent behavior by disobeying direct orders. We didn't purchase tickets to Barcelona, and our ship doesn't leave till tomorrow. Hans talks for our group, trying to calm down the angered authorities. We could still be thrown in jail. This country is run by a dictator. Fair treatment is not required. Hans seems to be making some traction in his talk with the officers. The tension starts to ease from the faces of those speaking to Hans. Then an outburst of group laughter. Whatever Hans is saying, it's working. Hans motions a thumbs up to our group, although some of the officers restart the heated debate. We wait it out. Hans continues the discussion with the authorities. We wait. Finally, a decision has been made and agreed upon. We are free to continue our journey. The officer that walked us from the docks to this office hands us our passports. His body language and facial expression betray a reluctance to let us be on our way. Maybe it's just how people have to be who work for Generalissimo Franco. We rushed out of the police headquarters back to the streets of the city of Ibiza. Let's get out of here before they change their minds. We move swiftly to get away from the authorities as soon as possible. After a brisk jog-like walk for a solid 20 minutes, we stop to regroup and catch our breath. The white city of Ibiza is built on cliff-like hills overlooking the port. It is tiring walking up the inclined streets and walkways. Hey guys, I need to find this place where I can purchase a sleeping bag. One of the guys at the cafe this morning described a place to me, and it looks to me like it should be nearby. Sure, man, says Hans. Our ship doesn't leave till tomorrow, so we have all day to hang out. There's a small park with picnic tables just up ahead, points out Oliver. How about the rest of us hang out there while you go shopping, Woodstock, and then meet back up with us over here? Sure, man, I agree. I walk to the park with the group, then split off by myself to find the store Manella spoke of at the cafe this morning. As luck would have it, I find the outdoor gear shop just a few blocks from the park. I purchase a used sleeping bag for 650 pesetas, about $10. That's pretty steep for my limited funds. I can't find anything cheaper that still has quality. Slim pickings. I snatch up my new, used sleeping bag and head back to my group. And as I'm standing out on the sidewalk in front of the store, stuffing my sleeping bag into my backpack, a familiar voice addresses me. Hey, Woodstock, is that you? I look up and see a friend of mine from my college days at Michigan State University, Dennis Reardon. Good old Denny. It is you, Stephen. Holy shit, says Dennis. Whoa, man, how you doing, I say. I knew it had to be you. No one else has a head of hair like you, even thousands of miles from home. Great to see you, man, says Dennis. We give each other a big bear hug and shake hands, broad grins spreading across our faces. I've got a group of guys I'm traveling with just down the road. Come along, I'll introduce you. So here I am in Ibiza, meeting up with an old college buddy from back home. What a small world it can be sometimes, especially this time. Dennis participated in the wave of hippiedom that took over the campus in East Lansing from the summer of 1967 on. We became hippie brethren, fellow students. Now here we are reunited in a planet of billions in this secluded space and time. Our unlikely paths cross once more. Wow. We walked together a few minutes, arriving at the park, both of us utterly bewildered with surprise at finding ourselves here together on Ibiza. Hey guys, this is my friend Dennis from back home in the States. We met up just now on the streets. What a surprise, I say. Dennis, this is Oliver, Hans, Dan, and Keith. I point out each guy as Dennis shakes hands in greeting, one after the other. You guys are welcome to come to my place and party. You can even crash if you need to. We have plenty of room. Our ship doesn't leave till tomorrow, so what do you say, guys? I inquire of my traveling companions. I'm in, says Hans. Me too, says Hans. I'm game, says Dan. Not me, says Keith. I'm going to find a hotel room for the night and hang by myself. The four of us in my gang follow Dennis to his hangout. Dennis takes us to an apartment complex where locals live and also rent out rooms and apartments to tourists. As we approach the complex, I spot a blues guitar player twanging away with his instrument, the sound carrying an anguished cry of joy to my ears. All of us stop and take notice of the guitar man. He stands on the second floor balcony overlooking us. Hey, mates, he says to us in a Scottish brogue. Many in our entourage wave back at the guitar man. He nods and smiles and picks on those strings, sliding his fingers along the fretbar, twanging out the blues. The guitar, jacked into a speaker, blares as loud as Middle Eastern women wailing at a funeral. Hey, man, where are you from? I shout up to him. Mississippi-ville, Scotland, man, he shouts back. We all smile with big grins plastered on our faces. I motion a thumbs up to him for his guitar playing. He resumes playing his instrument. We move along. I follow Dennis to his place, the rest of the guys tagging behind me. We arrive at his apartment. He opens the door and invites us all in. Hey, man, you guys can drop off all your gear in a spare back room here, says Dennis. He motions to a room in the back of the apartment. I enter the room and unload my backpack. As I leave the room, the next guy, Hans, enters and drops off his gear, and so forth. We quickly gather in the living room, and then all the guys take off to the beach. I locate a couch in the living room. It's quiet solitude in here. I make my way to the couch intent on sleep. I'm out. I sleep most of the rest of the day. Upon awakening in the early evening, just before dusk, I discovered I'm in the midst of an ongoing party taking place throughout the complex. Loud music blares from several directions, Motown sounds mixed in with acid rock of Hendrix and Jefferson Airplane. The hippie vibe of music culture travels well throughout the planet. I walk around the apartment complex, from one party scene to another, people dancing and drinking, laughing and smoking and toking, and I join in the fun. A sexy, short-haired, platinum blonde German woman catches my eye, as well as everyone else's. She is spellbindingly beautiful, an old-school Marlene Dietrich type of look. She is scantily dressed in a white, tight-fitting bikini. Her curves leave nothing to the imagination. I'm ready to bust out of my shorts just looking at her. She notices my gazing fancy and boldly comes over to me on the patio of the apartment. Can I touch your hair? She says. Only if you let me touch yours, I respond. Sure, she says. I reach out and rub my fingers through her gorgeous mane. Her hair feels like cottony feathers. She strokes her fingers through handfuls of my springy red ringlets. We fondle each other's hair, smiling blissfully. We don't even know each other's names, but that's perfectly all right with me. I can't talk anyway. I'm in a reverie as we continue fondling hair. Finally, she says in a whispery voice of seduction, would you like to go down to the beach and frolic in the water with me? Spellbound, I can only answer with, sure. She grabs my hand and pulls me along off the patio and through the crowd and down to the beach. I come running across the sand on the beach with the stunning German starlet by my side. My buddies already on the beach drop their jaws in wonder as I come running by with this beauty queen at my side. Wow, this is great. Another peak moment for me. Later in the evening, when all of us head back to the apartment complex from the beach, Rumor starts getting around about our antics and arrest on Formentera, with forced eviction from the islands. As word spreads, we notice people pointing at us from near and far. Many local islanders, always with a smile and a laugh, giggles. We have become overnight living legend sensation in this small island community. Strangers come up to us on the beach and at Denny's apartment patio, tourists and islanders alike, cheering, laughing, congratulating us on the epic proportions of our plight with the authorities, the Formentera Five. Each of us basks in the instant notoriety, all except Keith. I somehow lose track of the German blonde babe during the night's festivities in utter confusion from being pointed at and laughed at by everyone all night long. It took a while to get used to instant fame in a fishbowl everywhere you go. The party and the drink last late into the evening. I make my way to Denny's apartment. It is surprisingly quiet. I find my spot on the couch in the living room and fall fast asleep. In the morning, I pack up and get ready to head out to board the ship. It is still quiet in the apartment. None of my traveling companions are here. People are sleeping everywhere on the floor, in the chairs, out in the yard. I tiptoe around and grab my backpack and head out the door. As I near the pier, I spot Hans and Oliver with the beautiful German gal I met last night. It looks like they're doing some covert action by a semi-secluded hedgerow of bushes. I can only see their 3 heads and shoulders packed tightly together. I sneak up on them for a better view. Bikini laden, she is sandwiched between Hans and Oliver, their bodies packed tight together as both guys rub and feel her up. She is tongue to tongue with Hans. Then she turns around and switches to Oliver. The 3 of them are blissfully unaware of my presence. "Boo!" I say, jumping out on a path from the hidden bushes. Oliver snickers. Hans pretends surprised, but the woman is frightened by my sudden appearance. She lets out a scream. "Ah!" No, don't worry," says Hans. "Yeah, he's all right," says Oliver. "It's Woodstock." The voluptuous female adjusts her bikini to cover her left breast as she readjusts her bikini bottoms too. Looking innocent as can be at the 3 of us, she bats her eyes and smiles prettily. "Oh, I remember from yesterday. Your hair, you just scared me, jumping out of the bushes like that," she says. Then she grabs my hair and pulls me close to her. She licks my lips. I open my mouth and she dives in after my tongue. Then just as sudden as it started, she stops, pulls away. "Here's a present for you and your friends," she says, handing me 3 little tablets on a piece of cellophane paper. Then she walks away from the 3 of us in the hedgerow nearby the docks, like a sex goddess from Mount Olympus. I'm entranced. We never even told each other our names. "Who is she?" I inquire from the guys. "She told us to call her Minerva," says Oliver. "We had sex with her this morning before coming here." "What? You're bullshitting me," I say. "Both of you?" Hans and Oliver both grin back at me, nodding their heads happily. "No way, I can't believe it. She was with me at first," I proclaim. "Yeah, man, but you weren't there at the end of the night when the crowd filtered down on the beach," says Hans. "I had to sleep, man. I've been exhausted," I reply. "Well, it was our lucky night," says Oliver. "Let me see," says Hans. "What's in your hand? What did she give you?" "Yeah, man," says Oliver. I unroll my fingers from a clenched fist to reveal, "Wow, acid, man. Let's plan our next trip," says Hans.